Welcome. I hope everyone is well and amazing today. To start the show, I want to say thank you to everyone who had sent me all the kind messages, posted those positive reviews, and sent me the feedback on the pages. Your support does not fall on deaf ears. I tell everyone about it, and it's truly a motivation and inspiration to me. On the first episode, we're going to start off the beginning in the beginning. We'll be hearing an interview with Emily Uldrich. She's of the Southern Ohio Museum and Cultural Center in Portsmouth, Ohio. Emily is the museum educator and facilities manager. She has a bachelor's in science with a major in biology. She's been with the museum for approximately 6 years. The focus on the episode tonight will be the Art of Ancients permanent exhibit for the prehistoric Native American artifacts known as the Wertz Collection. The interview tonight was done in a raw format, which is one of my favorite ways that I hear other podcasters do it too. We walk throughout the exhibit within the walls of this beautiful museum, allowing you to hear even the echo and some of the ambient sound as if you're there walking with us. I hope you all enjoy this as much as I did, and if you're on the Facebook page or in the town hall group, there'll be posts showing some background to some of the cultures explained with some pictures of some of the items, as well as links to the website and the Facebook page of the museum. With that being said, here's the interview. I hope you all enjoy. Okay, well, we're here today with Emily Uldrich. We're at the Southern Ohio Museum and Cultural Center in Portsmouth, Ohio. And I'm here with Emily. She's going to go over the prehistory, not as in dinosaurs, but the prehistory of the region here in Scioto County and the Appalachian area. So I'm just going to have Emily let you guys know who she is and what we'll be doing today, and we'll just start from there.
So I'm the educator here at the Southern Ohio Museum and Cultural Center, which is a fancy way of saying I get to give the tours and teach art classes. And one of my favorite permanent exhibits is the Art of the Ancients, which is locally known as the Wertz Collection, and it is a collection of over 10,000 prehistoric Native American artifacts from the local area. And it is always on display for everyone to see here at the museum, and the museum is also always free, so I encourage anyone interested in this material to come and check it out. There's so much to see that every time you come, I'm sure you'll find something new. I always do. But it was collected by a father and son team, Charles and William Wertz. Charles Wertz was the dad, and he was alive in the late 1800s when they first started excavating the mounds. So he was involved with a lot of the excavations with the Ohio Historical Society, including the Tremper Mound and the Fort Mounds and Village site on the north side of Portsmouth. And then in addition to that, Charles also had a construction company. So he was involved with building a lot of the houses in the hilltop area of Portsmouth, which is, of course, built on top of what used to be the largest non-geometric earthwork in the whole world. So there's over 20 miles of mounds that used to be here in Portsmouth, Ohio. We have one remaining mound of the mound complex on our side of the river, which is the Horseshoe Mound in Mound Park. But as they were digging the basements and foundations for these houses on the hilltop area, they found a lot of artifacts, and so that's where a lot of these came from in this collection. And then Bill Wertz was dragged along to digging sites and collecting when he was very young and wasn't really that excited about it. And then Charles took him to a site near Gallipolis, and it was wintertime, and he found 3 pipes which were in the case, and they're effigy pipes in the shape of animals. And then he was hooked after that and continued his dad's passion throughout his lifetime. And we're really excited to have that collection here now for everybody to see.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming, actually.
Well, what people say,
there's
most
a
of the
lot
time,
in here. It's crazy how many items there really are that just came from here. You don't think about that. I recommend everybody to go on Google Maps and look up Portsmouth. You'll see how it's really a small area to have what I'm looking at. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, most museums, when they have a collection like this, most of it is in storage. And so you bring out the best pieces and highlight those, especially when you're limited on space like we are. But part of the stipulation with this gift, which was given to us by Bill Wertz's widow, Madeline Wertz, was that all objects had to be on display for the public at all times. So when you come here to see it, you get to see the entire collection.
Now, is there like area specified for like the Paleo-Indian range?
It's not arranged chronologically necessarily. It's grouped somewhat by objects, and then due to limited space, some of the vertical cases over there are more like open storage, but you still get to be able to see all of them. In the cases with the spear points, there are actually 3 Clovis points, which is the oldest artifact in North America. And there was...
We can get up and go look at it.
Yeah. So the Clovis points are special because they call them lancelet. They're in the shape of a lance. So they also have a part that's carved out of the base of them, which is called fluting, and that was supposedly to attach it easier to the shaft of the spear. But they're very recognizable, and those are supposed to be the oldest artifact from North America.
So that would be
and
like
that would be Paleo-Indian.
So,
yes.
Real
so
quick
you're talking
little,
about they date them back to the end of the last ice age. So they put that at 10 or 11,000 years ago. But there's still a lot of argument in the archaeological community about when people got here. And for a long time, it was assumed that they all crossed the land bridge across the Bering Strait. And now they found sites in Florida and South America that are much older than the sites that they found here in North America. So now they think they might have come up through South America and along the coast. So that's still up for debate. And they keep pushing the dates of the Paleo-Indians back because of what they keep finding.
I'd actually read somewhere that they were pushing like the near 12,000 years ago.
Yep.
And it maybe had come from a European side too, like the Spanish and stuff. So it's just amazing to sit here and see this stuff.
But yeah, we have things that go all the way back that far, and then the next, it all seemed very straightforward when I first started studying this, but once you really get into it, they just don't know that much about it, and there's a lot of speculation involved. But the next groups of people that they talk about are the archaic people and the glacial king people who did burials in the little mounds that were left behind from the glaciers. And we've got artifacts associated with that time period also. And then the majority of what we have is what would fall under the Adena and Hopewell, the classic mound builders, who originally they thought were 2 different cultures, and now there's a lot of muddiness in that. Also, they're not exactly sure where to draw the lines between the cultures or how many cultures were actually really involved with the mound building part of it.
Now, the archaic, were they the ones that with the axes?
Yeah, they started with the grooved axe, and then there are certain spear tips that are associated, certain shapes which are associated with the archaic cultures.
You know, this is something I don't think, I didn't know, so I want to bring this up.
Sure.
You did that lecture that I went to. Kind of let them know why you call them spear tips and not actual arrowheads.
Oh, yes.
Because a lot of people are always like, oh, it's an arrowhead.
No, everybody wants to come up here and see the arrowheads, and everybody tells me about their collections of arrowheads, but the majority of the arrowheads that I see are actually spear tips. So the mound building cultures did not have bow and arrow technology. They used what they call an atlatl, or a spear thrower. That's ATL. And the spear thrower was a short stick that they would use as an extension of the hand in order to throw their spears further and straighter and more accurately, more powerfully.
Now, that was the one that had the rope? Like, was it the one that had the strap on it when they threw it? Or?
Yeah, they found them in different designs, but basically it's a stick with a hook. The hook could be bone or stone or...
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, and then there's different ones made out of bone, and there's ones made out of wood. They found a few of them actually intact toward the southwest that are made out of wood. Here, when you put wood in the ground for 2,000 years, you're not likely to find it again. But yeah, so most of these are spear tips. The true arrowheads are a lot smaller, and they're triangular in shape. So if you see the notching in them, it's more likely that they are a spear tip, unless they're really small, and some of those are bird points for arrows.
Yeah, I was just going to say like that one there. So that's more like a small game. Yeah,
that is a spear tip. And that one in particular came from the Fort Village site. So on the north side of Portsmouth, there's a famous site called Fort Village, which is there with Fort Hill, Feurt, named after the guy that owned the farm. And there were mounds and a village site on that location. And that is where actually the majority of the artifacts in this collection that we know where they came from that site. And people lived there for a really long time.
And just so y'all know, what I'm looking at is literally just barely maybe an inch and a half long, maybe a half an inch wide tops, if that. On the bottom,
point,
goes up to a very small point, like a pencil point. I have never seen one quite that small. Yeah, you always hear people, arrowheads. Another interesting thing I remember you talking about is how the arrowheads are made of flint.
Yes.
And that there is no flint.
Yeah, so flint is not native to Scioto County, but there is a large flint outcropping called Flint Ridge in eastern Ohio, and that's where most of the flint that we see used in our area came from. But the Hopewell were very famous for sourcing exotic materials. So, for example, this point, the really dark, shiny black point, is made out of obsidian, which is volcanic glass from Yellowstone. So someone from here either had to travel all the way there without the aid of horses or any other fancy transportation like we have today, or trade to get that.
Wow, that's just crazy to just see all this stuff.
But
so, I mean, in here, what would you say the time frame just from start to newest to oldest
Here
would be?
we're looking at a paleo point, which would have been at least 11 or 12,000 years ago, and then we're looking at Fort Ancient point from Fort Village, which was probably at least 500 years old.
That's crazy to sit here and see this. So it's based off of the markings and how they're designed, is how you kind of know where they're.
I feel like that's kind of sketchy too, because they try to base the time period off of the shape of the point, and I feel like people probably have copied shapes of points or created their own shapes of them, so it's really hard to classify that. I feel like that's a lot like geology, how they use index fossils to date things, but like, what if there's an anomaly where that one's not exactly
or this is
from
this
that?
deep, so it came from this, but what if it had a massive flood in the area and moved it or something?
So yeah, you can't date you can date the stone, but you can't date when it was flaked. So yeah, there's a lot of fakes going around also, because it's so easy to pass it off as being old because the rock itself is old.
Now, when the Wertz family got there, about what time of the years was that when he was doing the excavations? And
so that was like 1890s through the Fort and Tremper excavations were early 1900s. I think it was 1915 for Tremper Mound excavation, somewhere in there.
Yeah, this is.
And then he was doing salvage excavations on the other side of the river, because the cool thing about Portsmouth Works is it extends across the river to the east and west of Mound Park into Kentucky. So they were doing construction in South Portsmouth and South Shore, and people would call Charles up and tell him, hey, they're digging up stuff, they found stuff over here, you want to come and salvage what you can. So he would go and try and get what he could from the construction sites also.
I see the hooks. For some reason, I misunderstood the hook thing as being like a leather strap or a rope that they slung to help bring it.
Well, there are bolos, and there are
like it was on the
hammer
spear that helped
stones
them.
that look similar to what you'd use for throwing bolo. But usually it's just a short shaft to throw a dart or a spear.
And these are all still from the same thing.
Yeah, same collection.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, we've got, what's really cool is there was a guy named Mills who worked for the Ohio Historical Society, actually headed it up for a long time and was in charge of the excavations at Fort and Tremper. And he put out several publications back in the early 1900s, and there are a lot of photographs in his work of pieces of the Wertz Collection that you can come and see here today.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool. So let's move down to the effigy pipes, because I know it was copies, but it was still just crazy to hold something that old and know that the ancient people had it in their hands.
So yeah, there's another really cool site that is in West Portsmouth where 73 and 104 come together, which is called Tremper Mound. And Tremper Mound is special because it started out as what they called a charnel house, which is where they would process the dead and get them ready for the next life. And so they would do cremations, and we assume ceremonies there. And they found enough cremations and burials in Tremper Mound that they think it was used for about 350 years. So that's a long time. Like, that's older than our country. But then at some point, they decided to stop using the charnel house, and they burnt it to the ground and built a mound over the top of it.
So with the pipes, kind of give them a little bit of a heads up what like an effigy means. And,
effigy means in the shape of an animal or a person. And the cool thing that they found, one of the coolest things in Tremper Mound, was they found a cache of nearly 100 pipes in the shape of effigies, in the shape of animals. And they were carved so naturalistically that they could even tell what species they represented.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I mean, that's crazy.
And then we have a single platform pipe that came from Tremper Mound during that excavation that Charles had, but the rest of our effigy pipes are from different areas, but we've got a couple that come from the Fort Village site. We've got one that comes from the Hardin Village, which is a site in Kentucky. And then we've got a few from the Beale site, which is near Gallipolis, Ohio.
Yeah, so basically what we're looking at looks like a tooth.
Yeah, a talon or a claw.
Yeah, a tooth or a talon, a turtle.
A wolf or a dog.
Wolf or a fox, maybe?
Yeah, maybe a fox. That one is kind of enigmatic. Some people say possum, some people say otter.
I was thinking
squirrel.
Otter was my first kind of thought. So this one here in the middle, this round one with the
design. So that one I think is a clay pipe, and it's got some inscription in it and some punctuations, so some little dots and some lines in it, which almost looks like it's close to a form of writing, but I don't know that it could just be a design. It's pretty interesting. Those are pretty rare types.
Yeah, it really stands out when you walk over here. You see the animals, and then this, just circle with this like artwork done on it is really.
And then the one to the left of that, the crow pipe, came from the Fort Village. That was actually Bill Wertz's favorite pipe, and that one's special because there is like zigzag lines that come out from his eyes. They call that the weeping eye motif, and that was actually a more popular motif with the Mississippian cultures. And the Southern Death Cult, which sounds very ominous.
Something out of like a horror movie.
But we have seen that motif repeated here in Southern Ohio and Kentucky also.
Yeah, these pipes are probably my favorite. I know everybody's always got their heads, awesome. But I see the pipes and it's just, especially, while we were there at that little, like, I guess lecture you could call it, I noticed people when you were passing it around, they were just like, oh yeah. And I held it, and it was just like, sitting there thinking the whole time, like, I know them were copies, but some of the items that passed around, I'm like, this is thousands of years ago. Yep. Some guy was holding this too,
and somebody made it,
and did this and made this and worked at making this with nothing but more rock, and things. So.
Well, and there's a pipestone quarry at the top of Fort Hill, also an ancient pipestone quarry where they got a lot of the pipestone where they carved the pipes. And it's kind of interesting because they found a very similar cache of effigy pipes at Mound City and Chillicothe, and the majority of those were made from pipestone from the Fort Hill.
That's crazy. So they were really, they traveled.
They traveled
really nomadic in this area.
So the copper from this case here, they didn't smelt copper or heat it, but they would hammer it cold, and they would go and dig copper nuggets by Lake Superior. And so that's quite a ways away. And then they just came out with a study in the last couple of years that they actually sourced copper in the southern Appalachian Mountains also. Oh, and speaking of Tremper Mound, I just saw in the paper today that the Ark of Appalachia was in the process of trying to purchase that property to make it open to the public.
That would be nice.
That would be awesome.
All my life I've driven by that, and it's always been owned by the farm there that, and it's private property, and as kids.
Right.
Wasn't that private to us as kids and stuff. This copper stuff is crazy how thin that is.
I know, isn't it amazing? It's beautiful.
So then they would have just basically beat this with stone, right?
Well, yeah, they didn't really have much else to work with.
So would these be rings here?
Yeah, there's some rings, bracelets, earrings. I like to tell the teenagers that people have been gauging their ears out for thousands of years now.
Just getting ready to ask, is that like gauging for ears? Yep. Okay, that's great. So it wasn't that original, guys. I'm sorry to tell you. It's not that original. So we move from the copper to what's...
Yeah, this case is what we call pendants and gorgets. So a pendant is, these are all slate. And so there's banded slate was really popular because it's so beautiful, all of the parallel banding of the lines.
Yeah, it looks brand new.
But they would drill a single hole in it, and they call them pendants. If they drilled 2 or more holes in them, they call them gorgets, which is named after the piece of medieval armor that sits over someone's throat, which they found them, I guess, associated with skeletons in that area. But these are all very mysterious objects. They have no idea what they're really for.
Oh, so okay. Well, that makes it even a little bit
But there are
clearer.
pictures of shells.
So, I mean, are these are the real objects?
Yeah, these are the real thing.
I mean,
everything in here is the real thing.
I figured that.
Because sometimes
but
you do go and see
you look
museums
at this
and you
and
get to
it's-
see copies of stuff, but
right.
this is all real.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying. I mean, you look at this, and it literally looks like I just went to the mall and bought these items. I mean, they're insane on how clean and I guess the smooth is what really gets me.
Yeah, they polish a lot with the rocks too. That fine polish they get, they think they use sand and water and just spend a lot of time rubbing them with hide and getting that really nice shine on them.
So you can definitely tell it was something they wore because a lot of it looks like
well,
almost
there's
like
holes
pendants.
in it,
Yeah,
so yeah,
and
it was drilled
looks
for
like
attachments
pendants.
to
Looks like
something.
we would wear nowadays. Like it looks like almost like a ladybug kind of thing. And
Well, they do have illustrations in South America of shell gorgets and kind of a necklace fashion.
yeah, well, see, when I seen these, that was the first thing I thought was that your throat guard from the armors. So they wouldn't use slate for much of anything but jewelry because it's
Well, it's pretty fragile,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't be practical to use for things like axes or other type of tools. But one of the other things they did is they highly prized teeth of animals to make pendants for necklaces. And if they couldn't find animal teeth and claws, they would make effigies of them. A lot of times out of slate or what they call it cannel coal, which is like a low grade coal. They would carve into the shape of animal teeth
So is
and
that what
talon.
these dark
Yep,
ribbons
that's what
are
those
there?
are there.
they really did like teeth.
Yeah, they did.
We got 3, 6, 9. There's 11 of them. One there.
And then
Not
one of
counting
the
the
most
necklaces.
popular artifacts in this is we've got a couple fossilized megalodon teeth that
Yeah,
were
we'll definitely
probably
be
used as
probably
pendants.
stopping by that.
Yes,
I'm a sharp person.
the kids love that.
Well, I'll let you lead on to where you'd like to kind of take us around to for next. So I take this as
Yeah, so this is
pottery in there.
ceramics. Pottery would have been a new technology for these people. They didn't have that in the times of the Paleo Indians and the Archaic period, but they did start to have pottery during the time of what they called the Adena. And it's really neat to see. We've got a lot of local clay sources. Like you can still go down to the riverbanks and creeks and find local clay. And one of the things that we can tell a lot of the regional pottery, they have to temper clay because clay shrinks when you fire it. So when you heat it, it shrinks and it cracks. And so you have to put something in it so that it doesn't stretch so much. And here they use a lot of mussel shells and clams from the river, and they grind those up to temper the pottery. So a lot of the pottery from around here has shell in it.
See, that was another thing. You don't even think about living on the Ohio River
Right.
your whole life. Hey, there's mussels and there's and stuff in there until you had said that. It's
But it's neat to see how they decorate because they.
yeah, I think that's the most fascinating part is that everything, no matter how, down to just like the simplest thing, like these bowls. I mean, they're effigy bowls and looks like with duck maybe and maybe like a lizard or something.
Yeah, it could be. People argue about what they're supposed to be. That one sort of looks like a frog or a salamander, maybe. I don't know.
But I mean, just down to something as simple as, hey, we made a bowl, but we can't just be a bowl. It needed to represent something because they just were so in touch with everything around them that it was always involved.
And obviously very aware of aesthetics because every piece is.
Oh yeah, very.
There's a lot of
aware.
attention to detail.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, oh, we just needed a bowl. Let's make this real quick. And, of course, probably nothing was. So is this?
Yeah, those are likely actual arrowheads, and that bowl was found at the Pixley Works, which is in Wheelersburg, or was in Wheelersburg, and that bowl was actually found with that cache of arrowheads inside of it. There's nearly 1,000. Very
small.
Very tiny.
Again,
yes.
like I said, most people think of the large, 2, 3, 4 inch bone that looks like bones, I guess.
Right.
That's to be in arrowheads, but the arrowheads are even smaller than the arrowheads we use with our metal nowadays and stuff. I mean, probably average is about an inch long and not more than a half an inch or so wide.
And then the bowl next to it, which is very similar in style, came from the Heinisch Mound, which used to be at the corner of Gallia and Waller, where the Portsmouth High School sits.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to think that this whole entire town sits on mounds. And for the woo-woo folks, it always is crazy to think that we don't hear more about some crazy stories at times too. It's also sad, I guess, a little to really know that. I mean, living here my whole life, I never honestly knew that everywhere was mounds.
Right.
And to know that we took these people and was just like, no, this is ours now. We're going to stomp on it and build some buildings.
I try to be positive, though, because I feel like it's such a great place to live.
Right.
This is the confluence of two great rivers. We've got the Scioto, we've got the Ohio.
Yeah.
People have lived here since the end of the Ice Age. So if you think about it, we're inhabiting the same great, wonderful space that they are and carrying on the same traditions of living day to day.
Yeah. It's kind of where my thinking has become. It's you sit in first and you're like, you hear all these stories and you hear these people saying it's just terrible what we've done, and it is.
I mean, it is.
But totally at the same time, it's like now we get the chance. We've had the chance, and then the next generation will get the chance to make it their own.
Well, I feel like we're enough removed from all the fighting between the settlers and the Native Americans that people can start to really appreciate what we're looking at. Because I feel like generations ago, when they were still in conflict, like this stuff just wasn't valued. There's so much of it that ended up in Europe because the Europeans could appreciate it being removed from the situation. But we are really lucky to be able to have this material that came from right here in Portsmouth still here for everybody to come and see.
See, I'm really curious. I see the flutes, right?
Yeah, the bird bone flutes.
Okay, let's just say, are those bird bones?
Yeah, bird bones are naturally hollow, so they make for good flutes. And some of those came from the Fort Village site.
I have to ask.
Has
anybody tried to play them?
No.
Okay. No. I had a feeling someone probably did. If it was me, I'd be like, there's nobody here. So.
Right.
This is... So these are little effigy stones?
Yeah, those are ceramic effigies. And there's a lot of faces there, some animals, some people. But it's kind of neat to see the markings that they put on the faces. So we don't know if that was war paint or scarification or some other type of decoration. And then there's some interesting hairdos and ear piercings.
Yeah, these almost look like they would have been for toys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like kids' toys.
Yep. Could be, for sure.
I like the dog. Looks
I
like
do too.
Yeah, that's neat. That's really neat. So now these, like, are they pumice or is this like for not pumice stones, but
those
are
mortar and pestle, sort of. These would be like mortars for paint. So those are little paint pots. They could find little natural concretions in the rock to make paint pots, and then these two at the top here are ceramic. And this one still has the ochre pigment in it.
Yeah, because one of the favorite things on the Facebook page is people really love the stuff with the herbs and the plants and everything. Yeah. And it's almost hard to keep up with getting new ones out there for everybody because they really, really enjoy those. So it's great. It's crazy to see what they could do just by knowing. You sit here and think, where did that come from? Hey, we're going to grab this flyer and it's going to make this for us.
Right. Yeah, someone had to be the first one to figure all that out.
And sometimes you wonder, did you want to be that guy?
Yeah, take a special person.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so what's these round flat?
Yeah, those are called discoidals, and those are one of the more mysterious objects. The large ones that you see here that are pretty wide on the edge, they think were used for a game called Chunky, where they would roll the disc on its edge, and then they would take turns throwing spears, and whoever's spear hit it or got closest to it would win points in the game.
Kind of like a modified yard darts.
Yeah, a lot like that.
Very interesting.
But some of these, obviously, you'd have trouble rolling on their edge because they're very thin. Yeah. And some of them are really small. Some of them have holes in the middle. Some of them don't. Some of them have decorations on them. Some of them are plain. Some of them are ceramic. Some of them are coal. Some of them are slate, sandstone.
This was the thing you said was the early Pokemon.
Yeah, so
it's like they're trading.
We've found things, like there's tokens in Samaria that have markings on them that look very similar to these. They've also found loom weights in different places, like Mesopotamia, that have holes in the center and look kind of similar to this. They've also found spindle wheels for spinning threads, and those look very similar. So I don't know. We have no idea what these are.
But it does look like it would be like, oh, hey, I got the gray one here. Well, yeah, I got the nice shiny black one.
Right, yeah, you can collect them all.
And stuff. And that's the other neat thing. I mean, even up to like some of this stuff 12,000 years ago, people still like to collect.
Right.
They like to collect. I like this item, so I want more of this item. seems to be something that's ingrained in our DNA. Now, these large...
Yeah, those are
small
stone spheres.
things.
They think those are maybe for games. But they also found a lot of spheres, mostly ceramic actually, at a mound site in Louisiana called Poverty Point. And there they found them in cooking pits. So they think they actually heated the stones in the fire and then added them to pots of water for soup or for cooking. Because they retain a lot of heat. So I don't know. We don't know what those are.
Interesting. Kind of like a barbecue grill.
Yes.
No, this is more...
Yeah, we got some knives and chisels, drills, little bone awls and needles. Got some mortar and pestle, some large and small grooved axes. And then we also have some plummets, which look a lot like a weight or a plumb bob. Nobody knows what those are either. They think they might be weights for fishing nets. We've heard of a lot of different uses, but nobody really knows.
That's what I was just thinking. It looks like a sinker for a fishing log.
Some people think they might have been in the shaman's medicine pouch. Nobody really knows what they are.
See, I always loved the mortar and pestles. That's why I couldn't believe I couldn't get the word pestle out of my mouth a minute ago.
Well, those stone bowls are really rare, and I mean, that's just such a perfect bowl.
It looks. That's what I was saying. It's like the slate thing. I mean, a lot of this stuff looks like you just went and bought it almost. But you can see the age, but just the quality is.
But it's kind of neat too because we've got so many artifacts that you can see a lot of the work in progress. Mm-hmm. Like this really large stone axe is obviously in like a preliminary stage. It hasn't been finished yet, but you can see where they started and then where they're going to finish. And it's kind of neat to see. Yeah,
definitely. It's like we streamlined it, smoothed it down, and I would still not like to chop much with that rounded edge. It had to take some work.
Yeah, it definitely would take some work.
This stuff just. I'll just follow on with you, and I'll ask as we go. This is just insane. There's so much stuff.
So we've got another case that's full of all kinds of spear tips. Then the bottom shelf here is a ton of grooved axes. So the grooved axe was the older version of the mound builder axe. The groove was used to attach it to the handle, and you can see they come in all different sizes and some different styles. They found some of these in the archaic cultures and also in the Adena cultures. And then as time went on, they started to, instead of making grooved axes, on the other side of this case, there's what we call a celt, or a celt, C-E-L-T, and those were an axe without a groove. And those ones were embedded into the handle so that when you used it, they became tighter, wedged in, instead of loosening up and having to be relashed to the handle. And those would have been Hopewell and Formation.
So is that the ones that would be through the wood and they would have to wrap? Okay. So that's the ones I'm seeing. Now for me, I'm thinking, oh, that's the old one, but not even close. With looking at this stuff, so the bones.
Yeah, so they used every part of the animals. So some of these are deer leg bones that have been turned into what they call beamers, which is for scraping hides. There's some of the deer ulnas, which have been sharpened into really sharp points for puncturing hides so that they could make clothing and use hides for whatever else they were using them for. So yeah, there's all kinds of parts and pieces. And then of course we've got beads made out of bone, pendants made out of bone, all kinds of really cool stuff. Some of these are shell beads. So some of those shells are marine, so they would have had to travel to the ocean or trade with people at the ocean to be able to get those shells.
It's a long walk.
And then over here are juvenile megalodon teeth.
Yeah, that's kind of where I needed to see.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. But yeah, we got some other pendants here, elk teeth and talons, and then the red
so
kind of
these
orange.
Were found in the mounds and stuff.
Yeah, they were actually pretty well documented. Shark teeth were very popular with the mound building cultures. So we assume that they used them for pendants. We've seen some of them drilled for attachment. A lot of them are undrilled, so we figured they probably wrapped them like we do with wire wrapping today for necklaces. And then the orange teeth here are beaver teeth. Beavers have iron in their teeth to make them stronger, because they don't wear as fast. So those were also found in the mounds.
They kept everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's...
Yeah, and there's a lot of more discoidals over here. A lot of these came from the Fort Village site.
So again, that's them flat discs that were like they think for games and or since it was found in multiple cultures, who knows? So what are these?
So those are shell gorgets. So that is a marine shell. So that was another one that they'd either have to travel to the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean to obtain. And then we don't quite know what they're for, but they have the holes drilled in them, just like the gorgets. So
It's
we
like
think
the
they were either
slates.
attached to clothing or to necklaces. Yeah, and then we've got a whole row down here of pestles for grinding.
That seems like one of these is the ones. Is one of these the ones you brought that we was?
Yeah, not one of these ones in particular.
Right.
We've got a separate collection for education, things that we pass around. But
Seems
it's the
more.
same,
It was from around this area.
same
or
thing.
Look of the, not the one over there. From
Yeah,
the
because
other
there's flat versions, which you'd use a flat stone, and then kind of a long, flatter stone for grinding, and then these are the handheld pestles.
one. So these.
Yeah, and those are called anvil rocks, so those could have been used for crushing nuts and berries or corn.
It's just, I mean, it's
I
just
know,
fast.
so
Yeah,
many
it's
things.
yeah. There's so many things to see. Now this looks like this pottery here. I mean, is that painted? Did they paint it, or is that like bred with like a copper or something?
A lot of it is what they call slip, so it'd be colored clay that's used to paint it. And then a lot of the color on the clay comes from the firing. So you can see how some of them have dark spots in certain areas, and that just has to do with the smoke and where the flame went in the areas that got hotter.
Yeah, that one really, though, it does look like it's made almost of metal. Just the
Right,
way
the color
it's
of it,
colored.
yeah.
I thought someone really worked and wanted that bowl if that's metal.
But yeah, they would wrap paddles with twine and make impressions on the pots for decoration. And then this one's really cool because they just found fairly recently in West Virginia that they decorated pottery with corn cobs, rolling corn cobs on the
you can see
surface,
that,
and you can
yeah.
see the corn cob impression on that pot. And then we've got a
Now,
bunch
are
of
these axes? Or?
those. Some of those may be
So they
large
look like
flint
giant
knives.
spearheads or
But
giant,
actually, most of those are hoes. So you can
Oh,
see it in the
cool.
shape of this
Yeah.
one for attachment, but they'd use those for digging in the garden. Because farming was a new technology for these people also. So Paline Indians were nomadic. They didn't
right.
settle down.
Wasn't until like the archaics that they started selling.
Yeah, it
right?
started a little bit of gardening, and then later they became more dependent on corn and beans and squash.
Some of this I just can't imagine coming from this area. You know, I mean, you cross what now? 3 states before you get to the ocean from here.
Right.
You know, if you go straight line, so, and just to know that they walked it, someone walked it, or someone met
Somebody
in the middle.
made the trip, yeah.
Somewhere is fairly just hard to even fathom.
And then
Now, what is
go-
it? No, go ahead.
This side is banner stones.
Yeah.
So they think, a lot of people think that, like the name, they were at the top of,
Oh yeah, they do look like they'd be on top
yeah,
of
a standard. So you
like the shaman would carry around, or the chief kind
like
of
your
thing.
staff, and
Someone
you have
important.
your banner stone
Yeah.
for so you could recognize somebody's importance.
I
But
have-
then there's also people that think those were weights that went onto an addle. So the spear
that's-
thrower, if with a little extra weight on it, you might be
Right.
able to get better leverage and better throw with
I
it.
see that, but it does more look like.
Well, some of them are huge. It'd be
Yeah,
really
that's what I
hard to
was-
use with.
Well, I was thinking this one here is big as my hand. You know,
Yeah, I
can't
don't think
imagine
that would be practical.
having that on the spear.
for a
It
spear
looks more
thrower.
like it's like this guy's really important because his is big and it's very eccentric and even this smaller one, but it's made with this.
Yeah, I think that's a fancy quartz. It's really pretty,
like a
isn't
quartz
it?
stone or something. That seems like that would be someone, or maybe
But I think it's cool looking at it because you can definitely tell, especially with the banded slate, that they planned the whole design of it around the banding. So a lot of times it's centralized and then it's worked into the design of the object.
kind of like
making.
that, and it's custom made for okay, this is yours and this is your duty for the tribe thing, and this is. So are these some more effigy?
Yeah,
things?
we've got
Okay,
some more little pieces of effigies.
The effigy stuff is just the most fascinating.
Yeah, a lot of the ceramics end up like broken into pieces, which is what you see here. But there's some there's a torso
I
there.
can see the dog again.
Yeah, it
Seems
looks like a little action figure
yeah.
or something.
It seems like they're all of the cultures. I bet dogs were a big one. But yeah, that's what they remind me of. Like especially the ones were like action figures. Like this is their first GI Joes. For their little kids, for the little ones and stuff to play.
And then we've got some little antler tip. So those could have been spear tips also. Just the end of the antler that they could use for that from elk or deer. And then we've got some fish hooks made out of bone, which these ones are really cool because you can see in process that they could make 2 hooks, one out of the top and bottom of each little piece of flat bone. And the fish hooks I love because I feel like technology in that area hasn't changed much at all.
It really hasn't. I mean,
Except for materials, maybe.
Yeah, it looks just like our metal fish hooks. I mean, some of them even were barbed a little bit.
Yeah, and then we've got some pipes in different forms here. We've got some that aren't finished yet. You can see the drilling. So they'd use flint drills to drill into the pipestone. And pipestone's pretty soft when you first quarry it.
That's what I was getting ready to ask. So would they just put it on the end and like roll it?
They don't know, because all of the wooden parts of it, we have the drills, but we don't know whether they used a bow drill or whether they hand drilled it or...
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, did one of them have the crank
pump
pipe
drill
style or something?
They could have, I mean...
You see this stuff and you think, oh, these people were so ancient and they what we would say they were, we'd be dumb compared to us, but no, we couldn't just sit down and come. I couldn't tell you hardly anybody could sit down and be like, hey, I'm going to make a pipe and I'm going to make it from stuff I make in my backyard, and they just did it. I mean, and there's so much of it. It was just like, hey, yeah, this is what you do kind of thing.
But yeah, they don't get a lot of credit for things like pump drills or bow drills or looms, because all of that stuff decayed. If they did have it, we wouldn't know about it. So unless there's direct evidence, we can't just assume that they had that type of technology.
Right.
But they had found weaving. Copper actually preserves the cloth fibers underneath it, and they do have some weavings that were in the collection of the State Museum, which is now the Ohio Historical Society, of woven cloth. But they say that it was all hand woven, but it looks pretty intricate, so it's possible that they did have that technology also. Yeah,
it just seems like, I mean, because the inside of these pipes are so smooth on some of them, and some of these items. So these long...
Yeah, those would have
like
been...
zucchini-shaped stones here.
Right. Those would have been pestles also. That's more of a South American style pestle, but you'd find really large flat rocks in a lot of areas.
So this is the flat.
Yeah, they wouldn't bring the anvil part of it because those large flat rocks were so big.
Seems like that would be for making, like, the cooking and stuff.
Yeah, for cooking, because you could grind your corn like that, or seeds.
And this...
Those are unfinished banner stones.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you look at these preforms, and then if we go over to the case over here, you can see...
Yeah, they're very...
how that started. So sometimes they are like that where they have the indentations in them, and sometimes there's like whole parts. So.
Yeah, and this to kind of explain the difference, because if you just found a rock outside and picked it up, that's how that one looks, and you come over here and then this looks like
all
something
polished
that
and finished.
Someone's used a lot of machinery on it to finish.
Well, and speaking of that, one of my favorite objects is the hammerstone, which is just the sort of spherical looking rock that fits in your hand. It didn't have a handle, but they used it as a hammer. But I feel like if I was out looking for things and I found that, I probably wouldn't even pick it up. It doesn't even look like anything.
Yeah, some of them just
made.
looks like a rock. But at the same time, like we were saying with the technology of the hooks, there's still, I know blacksmiths that have hammers that's got the two round, the two round bulbs on each side that they use.
Yeah, depending on what you're doing, sometimes it helps to have that shape.
No.
That is a really special piece. That was found near Trumper Mound, and that has been described as a stone maul. So it's made out of a hard stone, probably something similar to granite. But the shape of it is unlike any other artifact I've ever seen.
Well, the first thing I thought of when I saw it, and just to give you a quick explanation, it's like when you go to like the science museums and such, and they have the pendulum clock.
Oh, yeah.
It looks exactly like the bottom of the pendulum on the end of the pendulum clock. It's
yeah, it does. You're
pretty identical to the pendulum clock on here. And I'll have some things posted on the Facebook page, guys. But really, we'll get to the end. I'll put in the notes too for the websites and stuff for here. There's a lot of people overseas and that's on the page. So
cool. Well, if they ever plan a trip to Serpent Mound, we get a lot of people that come to Serpent Mound and then they come here to see all of the artifacts associated with those cultures.
Yeah, and that's another one I would like to get to see, because a lot of people don't know that Serpent Mound, if you search it, is one of the most famous sites in America, especially for the
what's the largest effigy mound in the entire world?
The First Nations and everything. And still, like I say, it's overwhelming in here to try to just stand here and see all of this around you, and it's just people that were here long before we ever even thought of it making it a civilized area. I mean, to me, honestly, seeing this is more civil probably than we are nowadays anyway. But
yeah, it's impressive to see what they could make with the technology that they had, with the resources that they had, and then just their aesthetic is just beautiful.
And when you say 10,000 pieces, you don't really see 10,000 pieces till you get here, and it's
Right.
like everywhere. There's just things of,
Well, there's so
you
much
know,
to see in this collection. It's
that
awesome.
like everything from like something that probably little kids held hundreds to thousands of years ago to something that, you know, grandma was making, you know, the flour to
Yep.
cook. I mean, it's very overwhelming. Your knowledge base is insane. It's just impressive and stuff. So I mean, is there anything else you'd like to say?
trying to think
Anything?
of,
It seems like we've went over all of them and looked at all of them.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to come and see us and to know that it's always free to come here. Now, other than the Native American artifacts, we're a fine art museum, so we have changing exhibits of artwork. We have about 5 different temporary exhibits in our 2 temporary spaces every year. So as you come during the different seasons, you can always come and see the artifacts, but there's other artwork to see also.
That's pretty impressive. Well, any contact information we give? The websites, Facebook
Yeah,
pages?
website is somacc.com, Southern Ohio Museum and Cultural Center. And then we also have a Facebook, SOMAC. And we've got an Instagram, so like us on Facebook, follow us.
Oh, well, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't need an Instagram. I'm on the Facebook page, but it was an Instagram page and stuff. Well, I appreciate this.
Yeah,
a
thank
lot.
you so
More
much,
than
Joshua.
you know, I know it seems odd to sit here and just have us telling stories about items as we go, and they don't see them, but I honestly think that you don't have to see them to
Well,
really,
just to think about
really
the people that
respect
were here
us.
before us,
Yeah,
it's really amazing.
and stuff. It is. It's quite fantastic.
And I'd refer people, if they're interested in the mounds that were here before us, in the 1840s, there are 2 guys named Squire and Davis who did the surveys of the Midwestern mounds for the Smithsonian Institution. And that book is so old that it's openly available, and you can find the maps of the Portsmouth earthworks, if people are interested in
You
checking
say
out.
Squire and Davis?
Squire and Davis.
Portsmouth, by the way, is Portsmouth. We say it wrong, we know. So sometimes with the way we say it, but I appreciate this very much. Just want to say thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful meeting you and seeing all this. And I will be back, and I'll be bringing the family in for this
Excellent.
stuff.
We're very kid-friendly, so we encourage anybody. And then we do have things in the galleries, like little scavenger hunts for kids to do, and things that they can touch and hold, since it's hard to go to the museum and not touch things. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. All right, well, thank you again, guys.
Yeah,
Everybody go to the website that she gave. I'll have it linked into the episode notes, along with the Facebook page, and then I'll get your Instagram on there, too. Go on there. It's got their schedule. The website's really nice. It's really easy to go through and everything. But Emily, again, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. Before we end tonight, I want to say thank you all again for your support on the Facebook page, on Instagram, and in the messages and emails and such that I receive. Links to the website for the museum will be in the notes tonight, as well as to the Facebook page, the group, and the email to contact Appalachian Anomalies. If you have any stories that you would like read, anything you would like to discuss on the show, please feel free to contact me. I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Again, check out the website for the Southern Ohio Museum and Cultural Center. Support them if you can. If you're close by, it's well worth the visit. As she said, admission is always free, and it's a great place. It has lots of little events also for children and families. I want to say good night, and I want to thank you all again for everything.
Ja.